Okay, here it is, back once again for all you listeners. Thanks for tuning in. Pod number 41. Myself, Sir Neverlook, Mr. All In, Dr. Evil 10%, and she's here, but she's not here. Mrs. No Show. She's not dead. She's alive. But she's still not here.
Should we have a bet? Will she turn up before the end of 2022?
A safe bet. I think she won't.
Oh, you think you won't?
Mr. All-In?
I think we'll get an appearance, at least one.
I don't. I think I'm going to go for no.
Ooh, what we bet?
We might get
a steak.
Yes,
yeah, let's bet a steak.
Bet a steak. True Bitcoiners, let's bet on steak. If we were to move the date, maybe. But yeah, if we were to keep it on this one, I highly doubt it. So another busy week in the world of Bitcoin.
It's been indeed, hasn't it? And also a busy week in Bitcoin for a certain B on the podcast.
It has indeed. So I'm going to talk slightly off topic, which is Bitcoin, and go into property a little bit, because practicing what we preach is putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet for my company. And so without going into full disclosure, essentially we are now in a position where we can DCA every week into Bitcoin. And what I looked at is using an exchange which was away from my main exchange, where I could DCA, just set and forget. So I'm not actually using Coinbase for this. I've already got an account set up with Gemini, and I think I did an account once with Binance, but just moved away from that. And I've gone with Bitpanda. And what I really like about Bitpanda is the fact that you can not only, of course, set the day, but you can set the exact time of when you want to buy. And what I looked at by doing this research as well is looking at what days Bitcoin tracks at its lowest. And according to the research, it's Sundays and Mondays. So I'll be buying in the early hours of Sunday morning every week and hopefully getting my DCA in. So literally you can do it on 15 minutes, and you can set up as many as you like as well in terms of these.
Do they give you lessons and rewards for cryptocurrency?
They do, but not if your name is Dr. Evil 10%. Only Mr. All-In and Sir Neverlook.
Do they actually give you rewards?
No, they don't. No, they don't. This is a huge shout out to Bitpanda, so they better probably sponsor us one day. But ultimately,
well, they'd have to take over from Bitcoin Lessons, your central hub for all your Bitcoin knowledge.
Good luck getting past that one. What time do you stack actually on Sunday morning?
Literally at like 11:45 p.m.
Sweet. I'm stacking at 11:30, and you're going to buy my bags. I'm going to pump the price.
Gonna pump it.
You actually reminds me of I haven't done my DCA this week.
See, that's the thing. Are you manually DCAing?
Yeah, so I transfer the money into Coinbase Pro, and then I have to remember to log in, but I've forgotten. So I'm just going in to check the money's there, and then I'm about to buy. Yeah.
See, and you raise a really good point, because naturally I would buy on Pro to reduce the fees. But with this one in particular, I'm using it from a Starling bank account, where you can actually use your IBAN number with Starling. So I'm buying in euros, which means that I'm not paying any fees. And but Bitpanda also have a pro version as well. But I didn't want to get into the whole I must remember to do it and then physically do it as well. So that was the reason why I went with them, because their fees and also the average percentage spread is a lot lower than others. So there needed to be a little bit of criteria for the exchange. So they needed to have low percentage in terms of fees, DCA, and then obviously the ability to automate it.
What's their fees compared to Coinbase, and also their exchange rates?
Yeah, I'd have to look back at my notes in terms of it, but I was never going to use Coinbase. I just wanted to get completely away.
So it was just have a secondary, but it had to be better than the market. So just be good. You know, I've never really looked at anything apart from Coinbase, because I think Mr. Allin told me 5 years ago to use Coinbase. Use Coinbase, and then I moved to Pro when I actually stopped being an idiot.
Yeah. Well, they do have the Pro version, but again, that would mean for me to manually do it. So essentially,
it doesn't offer any automated.
Not in Pro, not in their Pro.
No.
So obviously, Coinbase Pro doesn't have an automated.
Am I just imagining things? Or Coinbase Pro, you can probably build it in via an API, can't you?
Yeah. If you're a developer, you could do it.
Yeah.
But
I need to hire someone. So
yeah, if there's no like what you've got there with Bitpanda, where you're just clicking buttons and going, look, just buy. You can do that on Coinbase, but you got to do it on the main platform, just Coinbase.com, which then the fees are astronomical and pointless.
Yeah.
So you've got to go to Pro, and then unless you're a developer, you can't automate that one. But no, it sounds good. So yeah, it's definitely the only thing that, like the euro conversion, I definitely look into that, because I'd imagine unless they're doing a transfer wise, they're probably charging you on the conversion from pounds to euros. And then say you ever want to sell Bitcoin, does it have to go into euros first, then to pounds?
No, I don't think so, because they do offer pounds. It's just a 1.5% fee. And I was just like, well, I don't want any fees.
Okay.
And then on top of obviously what your normal fees would be as well.
Oh, right. But then, I think what's really interesting about this story, though, is like why you're doing this. This isn't your personal DCA, is it? It's for your property company and your DCA. So you've actually got Bitcoin on your balance sheet for your business as well as personal.
Absolutely. And so the reason being is property prices, as we know, have inflated massively over the last 12, 18 months. But once you buy a property, renovate it, and then obviously if you're in my position, refinance it, because I personally am doing the aptly named method as well, which is buy, rehab, rent, refinance and repeat. Essentially, you're left in the same position, and you might have funds, which I had, and as we spoke off camera and off air, they have already been pumped back into Bitcoin. So right now we're starting straight away on zero. So as the profits come in, you have to rebuild those funds back up. So essentially we're starting from zero. Rather than letting the money just simply stack in the bank where it's shrinking as each central bank continues to pump and print more money, I'm putting it on Bitcoin to increase, hopefully and truly, beat inflation, and then, of course, be able to repeat the whole process again. So it's a smallish percentage of the profits, but it gets us to the goal quicker, which is, again, more properties, more cash flow, but also putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. We might not ever use that money because we'll still be stacking normal cash on the side, but there is an element of the property business which has Bitcoin on its balance sheet.
Will you always do it? So say an example, Bitcoin gets a load of interest. I know Elon starts stacking, everyone goes wild for it, hits 100 grand too easily. Will you always DCA into Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think I will, because again, the money will be better used there than just sitting in the bank simply. Another thing as well is the ease, and again, shout out to Bitpanda, the ease of it all is, if I think that it's working, because I've kind of put in a timeline after 10 weeks, that'll be a certain amount of money. Stop. How's that money actually performed over the course of the 10 weeks? Had I have left it in the bank, naturally, it wouldn't have been what it had been. Let's say it's like £1,000. Or has 1,000 now gone to 1,500? Now we're in a obviously tricky predicament right now, because these 10 weeks, we've already seen 4 weeks into the beginning of the year, a downturn, and then we're kind of, a little bit iffy. But overall, I think we will always do it, but we could increase the DCA super easy and then put more money in.
Yeah. And by the way, questioning someone's DCA in case the price gets too high, shocking behavior. Shocking.
I was asking him for business. I wasn't asking for personal.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah. No,
because all you got to do is think about a long enough time frame, isn't it? Like, it's not.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I was just thinking 100 grand was probably a bad example. Maybe a million or something. Like, imagine it just flew up to 1 million. It's pumped. It's overpriced for what it covers at the moment in assets.
What you're going to sell it into, then?
Yeah.
Well, but this is it. Like, for me, for personal, I'll continue to DCA, but
it always comes down to, like, what you're going to sell it for, pounds. If Bitcoin's at £1 million a coin, like, we're in hyperinflation right now.
Yeah.
So what about SHIB?
Oh, Jesus Christ. That normally is at the end of this fucking podcast. You're bringing it in the beginning.
Early. He's shot his load early, hasn't he?
You've actually just reminded me of something, Mo, when you're talking about looking at the kind of cash flow and value in the bank. I've had my first year with Revolut since I started using the vaults for Bitcoin. So I've actually just made a note for myself to download the transactions and have a look through, see if I can identify how much I've contributed towards a vault.
That's good.
Yeah, because it's an interesting one, because we've had a massive fluctuation. We obviously had the big peak of it, kept on going up. Obviously, I'm going to be quids in, but it's literally been up, back down to where we were last January, roughly. So I think that'll be quite an interesting one to look at. And I think it's just a basic spreadsheet. So it'll take me like 10 minutes to do.
Yeah. The only question would be, did you have the vault on 10x for the entire year?
I've had it on for the majority. I would say at least 9 months, but the first 3, I'm not entirely sure. So
that sounds like you switched it on 10x at the all-time high. So that might skew it slightly. Always, everyone does it. I always say we always go a bit more bullish at an all-time high. It's just the way. But that might skew it. That's all I'd say, because you're probably stacking 1x between 20 and 60k. It got to 60k. You're like, let's 10x this bad boy, and then it was down only. So
I can't remember when I moved. I don't know if it can show you anywhere.
Yeah, it'll show you the price when you're.
When you download the.
Yeah, it'll have the price that you bought at. Yeah, well, at least transactions. How many stats. Yeah, so you'll see the price. Yeah, and you'll see how many sats you bought, or like the value of the sats. So you'll know it will jump from 50p buys to £5 buys. So that's obviously 10x. That's when you switch to 10x on. But no, I love all this. Like, it's you've outdone Sailor on this whole deal, because not only are you doing it through a business and leveraging business cash, not only are you doing that, you're also taking loans out from the government to help you stack. But then you've almost done the next thing, where you've actually put it into a property, increased the value of the property, kind of taken cash back out of it again, stacked it with sats. So you literally completely de-risked your investment. This is like literally genius, where like Sailor is still at risk. Like, if Bitcoin goes to zero, all his loans have to be paid. And just because he's a billionaire, he can pay them off, but he loses billions. In your model that you've done, you've got a property out of it in the middle which is returning value every single month, which will continue to do forever whilst you own that property. And then the Bitcoin that you've brought with it, if that goes to zero, all that happens is you lose the value that's in Bitcoin, but the loan you took out is still being paid by the rent you're collecting. So there is no loan repayable that you're suddenly left stuck with. So it's all over great. And obviously Bitcoin isn't going to zero. It's going to continue to go to the moon. So that's going to be just a free Bitcoin you got that you didn't have to pay for. The government essentially lent you the money at a very low interest rate. And it's just, it all ends up, it's like the way. You need to write a book on this, like write a play sheet and put it on Instagram for like $1.99 and sell like millions of the things.
It's a funny thing is that before we even started our podcast, we were all interested in money, and obviously, this is why we're still here and preaching to everyone that's listening. But during a crisis, that's the best time to actually make money. And I always, in a weird way, felt like I missed out in 2008 because I was obviously nowhere near where we are now
we were all
to be
poor.
able to. Yeah, we're all poor.
15 years ago.
We've all watched The Big Short, and this pandemic was essentially my Big Short, where I had the ability to make a bet, make a gamble, and I had the knowledge as well. And so prior to now, I don't really think, because I actually had to fill in a questionnaire through a mentor once who said, "What big gambles have you taken?" And unfortunately, I couldn't actually name a single gamble because I'm probably more a little bit like Dr. Evil 10% and cautious. And I was just like, I actually haven't taken any. So whereas now I could actually say, well, I've done a few gambles and this is a huge gamble, but I don't think it is a gamble. And it's an asymmetric, one-way, surefire thing that the apex predator that is known as Bitcoin takes out the whole game.
Exactly. If there's no high risk, then there's no high reward. If you play it safe the whole life, you'll earn 3% interest a year.
But I do struggle to. I'm starting to struggle to see Bitcoin as high risk though at the moment.
Oh yeah, well once you understand it, you end up realizing it's low risk. But the thing is, it depends how far you want to go, right? Because at the moment you're getting to the point where you're literally getting to microsailor levels here, where you're over the 100%. You're starting to get into 110, 120, 130. Now you can start saying, you know what? But that is risky. Having all your value in a single asset, even though you have unwavering confidence in that asset, it is still risky. So it's less risky than being all in on cash, but there's still a risk.
Yeah. There's only actually a 10K, well, actually an 8K difference between what I've put into property and what I've put into Bitcoin. Strangely enough. So that will be the true test and the true value. Now, of course, the property is winning right now because of the value of the property. But let's pan out 5-10 years' time. Let's see who's winning right now. So I have put in more into Bitcoin right now by 8K, but the property and the total value of the property, again, is outstripping that value.
Well, Bitcoin's on the bottom at the moment, right? We've just gone down 50%, haven't we? So if you redid that maths 2 months ago, I'm betting Bitcoin would be winning by a mile because we'd be 100% higher than we are now. So
yeah, but I guess they've got to beat the total value of the properties. So in total, in terms of the value of the property, so they've got a while to go.
Oh right, yeah. But yeah, you can't count the total value because you got to count the amount you got in. Because a lot of that is still the banks, isn't it? A little bit like it's almost like it's like buying some Bitcoin and going, oh, but I also have 10 times more Bitcoin, but I haven't paid it off yet.
But then it's a return. So with Bitcoin, you haven't got the passive income, whereas with the property you do. So how do you best calculate a passive income? Is it over, say, 5 years you add that on, or 10 years?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's probably over 10 or 20 to be fair.
So if you said 10 or 20, then it's probably a fairer one because Bitcoin, is obviously the price of the asset, whereas the property is the price of the asset which you own plus the income which you're going to get minus taxes and costs. Correct. So I set up a spreadsheet which I think I shared with Sir Neville around property, just to look at what your basic income and expenditure is, so you can work out what kind of return you're actually getting rather than just some basic numbers.
Yeah. I think it leads us quite nicely onto the other story as well that I kind of put out there in terms of Bitcoin to 1 million by 2030. Because of so this was via Cathie Wood and ARK Invest, and essentially how it talks about the various other asset classes that are out there that Bitcoin will take from in order to get to 1 million. And if I'm right, I don't believe in the, because there was a kind of a printout as well. I think it's, yeah, there it is, how it actually scoops up. It didn't include property in there.
How do you mean?
If you look at if you click into the link and then the breakdown, so I think it talked about, so it's going to take a percentage from the remittance market, a percentage from the gold market, and so on. But I don't believe that it mentioned anything about property.
All right. Yeah, it probably isn't right now. I think this probably is following the Sailor model, isn't it? Where
I think property is quite hard to predict, though, isn't it? Because you've got your investments, but then you've also got a lot which are owned for residential purposes.
Yeah.
So how can I don't know if there's an easy way of working that out.
Yeah, I'd imagine there'd be a bit, because you represent a bit. The money that you have in Bitcoin now would probably be in property if it wasn't. So that is technically taking away from the housing market, because that's a load of money that would be in there, right? That isn't in there now. So I'd imagine it is, but I think on probably a more macro scale, I think, because they're only talking until 2030 here, aren't they? So it's only 8 years ahead. So I think they're just going, look, it's just going to steal from gold and stock market. They're the liquid markets where it's just nice and easy to buy and sell, and Bitcoin kind of fits perfectly against those asset classes. And it's probably going to be post 2030 that Bitcoin has absorbed most of that. The people that want to be in, that has gold and stocks, will have Bitcoin at that point. And that's why we're at 1 million. The next bit will be all the property guys will be going, why am I sat here getting, kind of 10% gains on the property price, maybe a 2 to 3% dividend via rent every year. So that adds up to 15 to 20%, I don't know, gains per year. And I've missed out on all this on Bitcoin. And they're still saying it's going to go to 15 million in the next 10 years. Shit, I need to start selling property and getting into Bitcoin. So I guess that's the next wave, right? To get from 1 million to the 15 million, it probably involves a huge amount of the property market as well. But yeah, maybe she's not factoring that, which I think is a bit of a mistake. I think over the next 8 years, you're the prime example. There's people that are kind of coming up that are young in property, and you're switching your funds from property into Bitcoin. So yeah, if they haven't included it, they probably missed the trick a little bit there, which means the price is going to be above $1 million in 2030 because you missed property.
Correct. So I've just posted it in our group, and then we can put it in the show notes. But essentially, I'll just quickly read through them. 0.3 trillion from remittance network, 2.8 trillion from the emerging market currency, 3.8 trillion from the economic settlement network, 3.8 from nation state treasuries, so people like El Salvador, 4 million from seizure resistant asset, institutional investment, and further 4.1 trillion corporate treasury, so 5% of cash of the S&P 500 companies, 4.2 trillion. And again, I feel like that's quite kind of conservative. And then 50% of gold's total market capitalization at 5.5 trillion. And so that all adds up to 28.5 trillion, which then goes to the value of over £1 million a Bitcoin, or over $1.36 million of Bitcoin.
Man, that is one hell of a sexy chart.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That's an infographic that I might have to spend 5 minutes with alone. have a little private time with a bit of Cathie Wood on the screen from 20 years ago.
Yeah, young Cathie Wood.
I would Cathie Wood. I've got words for Cathie Wood. So many.
So many.
And I'm not just talking about your charts. It's
essentially that chart covers 8 things in total, and Bitcoin use cases. there are so many more use cases. It's not talked about artwork in there. It's not talked about property in there. Just general cash from the plebs like ourselves. All of that is going to pump into Bitcoin over the next 9 years, 10 years, and easily, I believe, by sooner than 2030.
I hope it does. I want to retire before then.
Right. These sats are just, we will look back on this, like the sats are so stupidly cheap. So cheap. Like even at the 69K all-time high, ridiculously cheap. Like 100K, ridiculously cheap. Like this is where it's going. That's still just over the next decade, 100K is 10% of where we're going. You've still got a 10x from there just in the next 10 years. But of course, what we know for certain is on the way to the million, a shit ton of volatility. It's going to look like we're going to zero 17 times on that journey. And it's going to look like we're going to 10 million 30 times. Like everyone's going to get too excited, then too bearish. And it's exactly what's happening now. Everyone's super bearish right now. Bitcoin's going to zero, it'll be doom and gloom, just because we've come down 50%. And guess what? That's when we reverse and we start mooning. But yeah, it's good to see the breakdown, because it's one of them, isn't it? Like, all I've seen really is the $15 million Bitcoin. That's when we've got it all. But that's the first million broken down.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
I feel like that's pretty conservative too. The numbers that are there, they're not too exaggerated. So yeah.
It's interesting when it comes from someone like Cathie Wood as well. It's not just some God knows person on Twitter like Plan B coming up with this. It's no offense to Plan B, because his model did keep track most of the time.
No,
but when it's until the last couple of months, it fell apart.
Yeah, well, he only created the model in 2017, and then it pretty much broke from there. the second he modeled the next halving on it, it broke.
Someone like Cathie Wood, it's just very big investor, so it's something definitely to consider.
Absolutely.
And Cathie Wood when she was younger.
Yeah. I think the article originally that I sent in has changed, because it did have that chart in there. But for any listeners that are watching, it's definitely worthwhile. Take you 5-10 minutes, a packet of tissue, some soft scented chocolates, and a little candle light, and look at your chart.
Yeah, I do much prefer this stuff. It's based on real data as opposed to just tea leaves. Correct. And charts, and just mapping the price and going, oh, if it does what it did the last 10 years, in the next 10, then it does this. It's like, well, no, that's bollocks. Like, why would it do that? Like, where's the demand coming from? Cathie breaks down the demand. Like, here is where the money is coming from. How do we get to $1 million Bitcoin? Well, here, and here. Okay.
The beauty of it is as well, in the way that she's broken down the chart, is you can now track that chart through the various different asset classes and say, okay, is the decline in gold happening, and where is that money from gold obviously going? And so each one of those 8 asset classes can easily be reviewed year after year after year. They may go up, they may go down. There may be another asset class that she hasn't naturally factored in, which we've discussed, that then also becomes part of it. And lo and behold, we'll just look at the price on the right and then go from there.
Sweet. Do you want to switch to the 2 biggest nations that are just pissing me off at the moment about Bitcoin?
Just you?
Yeah, well, just me at the moment, yeah. But pretty much every Bitcoiner, really, yeah. So we've got America and Russia, haven't we, here? But actually, to be fair, Russia has done a bit of a U-turn. But in America, we've got, and this is the thing that I am a little bit worried about, right, around Bitcoin, at least in the short term, because this is every bit of news that comes out of America from any politician is very, very negative. And they seem to be really like using every like scare tactic they can use against Bitcoin. And so we've had, Senator, Elizabeth Warren say it's causing climate change. which she's still going on about. But now this is Biden saying it's a matter of national security that they regulate Bitcoin, or they keep saying cryptocurrency, but really we know he doesn't give a shit about crypto. He cares about Bitcoin. That's the one coming for the dollar. The rest are just Ponzi casinos that he'd be more than happy to let ride. But it's Bitcoin that he's scared of. And just those words, like saying a matter of national security, that's like, it's like the veto words, that once you say those words, it means you can do whatever you want now. It's almost, this is a threat to national security of America. So when you say that, it's like you can go to war, like literal war against who's doing that. So it's like, how is he going to go to war with Bitcoin? Obviously, there's no one to bomb, there's no one to shoot, because we're all just Bitcoiners all around the world. But
I'm sure he could find a way.
His way of doing it would be to regulate it, right? To ban it. If something is a matter of national security, then you ban Bitcoin in America.
Yeah. So that would mean over 50% of the mining that's going on right now. Obviously, the exchanges in the US as well. Your Coinbase's, FTX, Binance, Kraken, so on.
Yeah. In the short term, undoubtedly, it would be devastating to the price. Because imagine how many American investors would just have to exit the asset, or before they can leave the country, at least. There's going to be some people that can flee, but some people, just as we see all the time, it's been banned in India, Russia, China, obviously a million times. Every time they ban it, we see a sell pressure, because there's a lot of people in that country that don't want to be caught holding a bag they're no longer allowed to sell, or it's illegal to hold. So if America was to ban it, I think we'd see a lot of sell pressure. It would work out in the wash eventually. It'd just be America's loss. Everyone else would buy up the cheap coins, and we could keep going on our path. But yes, it's a big story to watch, this one. I think obviously they haven't mentioned banning at all here, but with the climate change stuff plus this national security stuff, I'm getting danger signs to go, America's about to do something big in Bitcoin, and not positive.
They've done a number of things where they've tried to bring in various different bills which have been massive overreach, and then they've just been knocked back because they have been exceptional overreach. So there's a $600, any transaction over $600, we want to be able to see and follow and blah blah blah, and you've got basically our permission offers. Whereas this, I feel like it'll get knocked back because it's a complete invasion of privacy. And whilst we kind of laugh about America being a bit of a communist state, they still have laws in order to protect this kind of stuff. So I do struggle to see it being passed, even no matter what crazy old Biden says.
Yeah. Well, do you think they use the word regulate instead of ban?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it? Because regulate, like technically, it's already regulated.
Yeah, exactly.
It's super heavily regulated in America. Like you can't get any Bitcoin without, and they've already passed, like in Biden's last bill that he shoved in on like page 4086 or something. Every time a Bitcoin transaction happens from one person to another, that has to be KYC'd, which it's the equivalent of me paying you $100 for something. That's fine if we do it in dollars. If we did that in Bitcoin, has to be KYC'd. Otherwise, it comes with a fine. You're committing a felony.
Yeah,
that's huge, and they've sneaked that in at the back of that infrastructure bill that got signed up.
So, how are we going to know when you put it through CoinJoin and then use something like Blue Wallet?
Yeah, well, I guess it's one of those, isn't it? When people do that, and they're a bit more wiser.
Yeah. Well, for that one, they won't. Yeah, they won't. Which is why your personal privacy is key. But obviously, if you're not doing anything illegal, then it's not too bad to declare it.
But it's still none of their damn business.
Absolutely, they're just trying to make it. You know why they're doing it? They don't even care. All they really care about is trying to add friction into Bitcoin and making dollars look better.
Yeah.
Because if I have to write a report every time and put it on my tax return every time I buy $100 worth of stuff in Bitcoin, and I could just pen dollars and there's nothing, then I'm going to spend the dollars, aren't I?
Yeah.
You're artificially making dollars better than Bitcoin because you're the regulators and you're building a moat around it. That's what regulators do. They build
But it
moats
does-
around the incumbent.
But also, it's getting money that's flowing out of your cash and fiat and banks into these exchanges as well, which they don't like.
But it is, you know, it kind of digs into the crazy last days of the church, crazy last days of the Roman Empire, crazy last days of the Chinese Empire. This is the kind of shit which happens. And like,
Yeah.
I think I've said it many times over the last, what are we up to now, about 9 months or so while we were doing the pod, but it just reeks. Various regulations and laws which have been coming in just reek of what's gone on in centuries past.
Yeah.
History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes.
Yeah.
And if you want to read about that stuff, there's a number of chapters in The Sovereign Individual which talk about this. And it's written in 1999, so it's not just some conspiracy theory, but it's all starting to happen now.
Yeah. Well, so this is, you know, all you have to do is study money a little bit, and the rise and fall of money has happened many, many times, and it goes through exactly the same things. It's just, it's factual. It's not, and what you've got to believe, if it's wrong, is that this time it's different. And every single person on the previous forms of money went, no, this time it's different. And guess what? It wasn't. So,
but say if you've got sound money and no one, so say Bitcoin becomes a standard, becomes a sound money, will it be different?
Yeah, I don't.
Because it becomes a sound,
what would need to happen?
It becomes a sound money. It becomes the next renaissance, which has happened before. So it's where people can create savings, they can work out how much they need, they can be inventive. It encourages innovation, you know, which we've seen many times over history. But then we moved off that gold, that sound money, and went into fiat, didn't we?
I know. Well, that's the thing.
Is that what happens with Bitcoin? Is that Bitcoin becomes a currency? Then we go, oh, don't worry about using Bitcoins and sats. You then use this fiat to go with your currency. Then it goes, oh, give us your Bitcoin. Is that how you see it going eventually in 200 years?
And then they eventually take your Bitcoin.
Unfortunately, yeah. Which is why I think, you know, that's why we talk about Citadel so much, because during the fall of this, they will do the same thing with gold. Yeah, you just got to look at the gold standard. That's the last time we've ever had sound money. And once they lose control of the money, because everyone's starting to hoard it and they're starting to rely less on government, they need your attention back. So they'll pass laws to regulate gold, and just as they will do with Bitcoin, that you can't hold over a certain amount on you personally. You have to custody it with them. And once they custody it with them, you know, just like they did with gold, they'll steal all the gold. And before you know it, they will start printing more Bitcoin on top of the Bitcoin they hold. And it will be paper Bitcoin or digital Bitcoin. They'll wrap it, or they'll call it something else. They'll call it government Bitcoin or whatever. And then, so probably, unfortunately, we think we're going to fix the world. Who knows? Maybe it's the world's just too fucked, and ultimately what we'll end up getting, we'll get a renaissance. We'll get governments being more efficient and having to rein in their wars and just overspending whilst we're going through the adoption of Bitcoin. But then fundamentally, they still got all the guns, so they end up stealing it back. And enough people, I suppose, like the thing we need to do is to stand up. We need as many people to be informed to go, do not give them your Bitcoin. That they will threaten you with everything. Do not give it to them. Because the second you give it to them,
they hand it over. I think they hand it over willingly, freely, but unknowingly. So we covered it on last week's pod, where the banks are trying to get into Bitcoin, and we also have spoken about it before, where taking Bitcoin off an exchange isn't necessarily the easiest for most people. Obviously, it is possible. It's not a dark art, but it's not a simple thing per se to do. And so by offering it, you put it into the bank or you buy it through the bank, but then all of a sudden Bitcoin becomes banned, and therefore you are no longer able to hold it. And lo and behold, that Bitcoin now belongs to the bank. You don't own the Bitcoin because you didn't think that the bank would ever steal it from you. So you never invested the time into learning how to use a cold storage wallet, and boom, you're out of Bitcoin.
Yeah. I think it's the perfect transition into the Russia kind of story, where it seems to be that Putin is being more positive on Bitcoin. He's actually saying he'd rather just regulate it than ban it. His central bank said to ban it. But I think there's a numerous kind of angles to take on this story, because like, why is Putin being pro Bitcoin really? Yeah. And I think it might be the same model, just as China banned it, regulated it, and then popped up 3 exchanges that you can buy Bitcoin on, but you're not allowed to take it out. Really, all they're doing, it's the gold model right there. They're going, you can buy Bitcoin, but you've got to leave it here. So really, the government is taking custody of your Bitcoin, and it's a matter of time. They'll just wait for an amount of money to get stored in there. And at some point, they will replace your Bitcoin with a token that is something else. That they'll tell you, oh, it's redeemable in Bitcoin at any point, don't worry. And then 5 years will go by and they'll go, actually, it's not redeemable anymore. And before you know it, they'll go, oh, we used to have 100,000 Bitcoin. Now we've got 150. Now we've got 200,000. It's like, no, you haven't. You're just making shit up. We can no.
Instead, you can have these tokens which are worth exactly the same as Bitcoin, and it's known as SHIB. It's exactly the same train of thought which I had, because if you get China do it, Russia does it, and say if America tries to do it next, and we know that the UK tries to follow America. So that's the point. I think when that comes in, it's a point which I use CoinJoy and make it disappear.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost it.
I was actually going to put in another article as well, and it's more for commentary rather than for us to really go in depth on, where 10,000 Bitcoins were kind of highlighted on Whale Alert, having been stolen off, I think it was Bitfinex in 2016. I don't know if you saw that on Twitter.
Yeah.
But essentially, those coins have not been coin joined at all, and they are marked as stolen, 10,000 stolen coins.
Yeah.
So
well, the problem they've got, they can't coin join because those coins are worth $5 billion. there isn't enough liquidity inside CoinJoin to clean 5 billion. Like if you want to clean a couple of grand, maybe even 10 or 20 grand, fine. That's nice and easy.
If you just have to do it gradually, wouldn't they?
Like what would happen is you put 5 billion into one end of CoinJoin, it would get mixed with like another 10 million and come out the end, and they'd be like, well, 10 million went there and there's another 5 billion of random stuff. We still know where it is. It would be harder. It would still, but what they tend to do, they normally try and put it into like something like Monero or something, and then send it one hop and then put it back into Bitcoin. But the problem is when you got 5 billion, this is ridiculously big. Like you're gonna have to just really break that down into pieces, because obviously everyone's watching your money. But
well, the fact that they waited for so long already, since 2016.
Yeah, good hodlers.
Great hodlers. And then decided to move it. And at this point in the price as well, because they could have easily moved it when it was 69.
So what do they move? Just move wallets?
Moved it to an unidentified wallet. So the 10,000 stack that was stolen from the exchange back in 2016 has now moved to an unidentified wallet.
Yeah, I'd imagine they're about to do something with it. They probably are about to coin join it or something, or try and convert it into a different type of currency.
We'll just have to do it in bits. So they're not going to get all of it. It's going to take many years to do. So
yeah.
I thought maybe about adding it to on the schedule as a weekly thing, as a Whale Alert, but I only see them here and there. But maybe it'll be good, because essentially it also reminds you to take self-sovereignty as well.
Oh yeah,
off it all, rather than leaving it on an exchange.
We've had quite a few stories, haven't we, about self-sovereignty? So it's just another example of many. Don't be a fucking idiot and lazy. Research it and actually do it yourself.
Yeah.
I I think this actually adds a little bit of urgency for me as well to do that, as in just stack as much as you can now, because who knows when the exchanges switch off the withdraw button. So taking self-custody at the moment, at least it's possible. But if you're in China right now, that isn't possible. You can buy Bitcoin. You're not allowed to take custody, no matter how technically savvy you are. I reckon that's probably going to happen in Russia. If that's the route America go, obviously, like you just said, we'll follow. So Coinbase and Kraken and Bitpanda, they will all have it. But that little withdraw button that says, take it to your ledger will disappear. And it will just become like a stockbroker's account where you can buy and sell, but it stays there. And we all know that's essentially the government-owned coin now. If they ever want to just grab it, they can grab it. And obviously we know Bitcoin's a threat. So I think it puts a bit of urgency to go DCA all you want, but don't leave too much spare cash sitting around, because you just don't know when that withdraw button disappears.
Do we know how much of Bitcoin is on exchanges and how much is held in wallets?
Yeah, we do. There's a breakdown of like what wallets have what coins. So there's some very, very large wallets that are obviously exchanges. I think I know it's people track it. It's at all-time lows at the moment, which is why we think there's almost like going to be a demand shortage, because the exchanges own so little Bitcoin that if everyone buys it, like the price just goes to the fucking moon, because the exchanges haven't got enough Bitcoin to sell. I can't remember the percentages though off the top of my head. I think it's like 10 or 20% of the Bitcoin is on an exchange, something like that.
So that's interesting. So I was
on next week actually. That's a point.
So I was wondering, which way it swung, because I just didn't know. But I suppose the majority of hodlers, they won't have it on an exchange. Like, you basically have a bit because you're DCAing, but once you built up a bit of a stack, you'll move it.
Yeah, I think the last time I looked, I think it was like 1 to 2 million Bitcoin were on exchanges, which is like 10% of the supply, and that is at all-time lows. It's been a lot higher than that. There's been like 4 or 5 million Bitcoin on exchanges before, and so it just shows as a trend of as the Bitcoin matures, the exchanges have less and less Bitcoin. Obviously, the price is also going up, which reflects the same thing. But
Giga chance just buying too much.
Yeah. And there's a bit of a thing about him, because it's like whether I'm pretty sure a lot of his Bitcoin is in custody. He holds it in Coinbase custody. He doesn't take ownership of it.
Of his own, or the MicroStrategy?
Of the
MicroStrategy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about his own, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't take it of his own either.
I think he would have to with his own.
This was interesting actually, because for me, and going back to the first story, and also looking at the playbook which you posted, it goes through all the various different departments of who has to ask who and do what. Obviously, I only have to look in the mirror and say, yeah, fucking do it, darling, and then it's done. So from a business perspective, how do they secure it, and who has what keys? And essentially, do you just leave it on the exchange, because that way it's safe from everyone?
I think Michael Saylor has the safe words on a penis piercing.
And the only person that can arouse him is Cathie Wood. So the only way to get the 24th word is to get Cathie Wood to suck off Saylor. What a way to get the final word.
No way.
But no, I do actually know how the custody works. So it's like there's when you pay the big bucks, it's not just sat in, like, obviously if you're just a normal customer of Coinbase, it is sat in a wallet, and you are trusting their internal security teams, and they have a load of protocols inside that various people know certain protocols and all that stuff, and you've got to have lots of sign off. But when you take custody for billions worth, and from a company like Saylor is here, they will literally employ different vaults for you. Like, these vaults are all around the world, different words in different vaults. They'll have different ledgers. They'll spread the money around. And then you will have certain passwords. They will have passwords. The only way to get access to the vault is if they call up one of your guys plus one of theirs. plus maybe Saylor himself.
Right.
So it's all like when you're investing billions, he will be paying like 1 to 2 million at least a year for a security team at Coinbase to manage and look after that stuff. But he's still relying on them. He's not taking complete custody. I wish he would spend a couple of million himself, employing and doing all this himself. Like that's what you should do.
He could employ me.
Yeah, exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, what we've just really heard is how Mr. All-In stacks. That's his real strategy. You know, that's when you move to those big boy levels. That's the type of service that you get from Coinbase.
And replace Cathie Wood with Elizabeth Warren.
Janet Yellen.
Yeah, Janet Yellen as well. And what's the other one called?
It's just those two.
Nancy Pelosi.
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy. Yeah.
The only way to get my words if you get Nancy in here with some ice cream. Because this is my final words down there. What are you gonna do?
First of all, she has to talk to you about her investment strategy to get you aroused.
Yeah. It's a really good idea where to put your final words. Put it on your dick. You can only read it if you're full on erect.
Maybe we want to go back to the notes. So we've been talking about Russia, about America, and obviously keeping self-sovereignty. Maybe on a bit of an up note, because we've been talking about Russia, which I assume it's going to be a negative, America, which is a negative. How about we talk about Turkey? So it seems to be progressing, maybe?
Yeah. Looks interesting. Now, we all knew that following from last week's meeting between Bukhari and Erdogan, he could not drop at least 1 or 2 orange pills. You know, Erdogan looked the other way, bam, he's going to drop something in his drink, and you know it's going to be an orange pill, right? He was going there with a plan, and that was to try and calm down Turkey's crazy inflation rates.
Yeah, I mean, they've tried interest rates, they've tried money printing, they've tried combinations, they tried not doing anything, and the money's just going printing away, isn't it?
Yeah.
It does look super positive, doesn't it? Because we said like it's just a wait and see. Companies move slow, who knows? But the fact is, the early signs straight away, the president has gone, we need to explore this. I want some reports. That straight away indicates he's interested.
But they are quite a reserved country, so are they going to get there?
Yeah, who knows?
But they are fucked. You know, something's going to change. So I was having a quick read about the history of money, and it said that they removed zeros off the lira in 2003. So, you know, it was, say, 10,000, then it changed to 10, and it's still devaluing its way.
Wow.
And Erdogan's called it the national shame about the devaluation of the lira because they just can't control it. The population doesn't want it.
Yeah. Well, it seems great. Like, who knows? Because what is it like? He's fired his last, what is it like, director of finance or whatever, or finance.
Yeah,
minister.
it's like and it's, I think one's even been some kind of relative or like husband of his daughter or something. He still fired them.
Which looks positive, right? Because if
he wants a solution.
Yeah, exactly. Because really, like the head of the Fed in America, all of them for the last 30 years, 50 years should have been fired. None of them have been fired. They've all just been glorified and said that they're geniuses and stimulated economies and just given like blown smoke up their ass. So the fact that he's actually firing his, which is exactly what he should be doing, provided it's a real firing and not a you're fired, but here's 50 million, good night. That's not fired. That's being paid off. Like, well done, you printed a load of money.
I'm reading Rich Dad Poor Dad's was it
Who Stole My Pension?
Yeah, Who Stole My Pension? It's talking about this, and it talked about someone who was an Austrian economist, and basically, you know, they're not meant to print money because the whole principle is about sound money. And saying basically because he was voted into it, he had to. Otherwise, the economy would collapse. And it's just, it is the nature of the beast.
Exactly. And you
Yeah.
go,
Can't stop it.
Yeah. And then you go, but what if you print money? Does that stop the economy collapsing? It's like, well, yeah, for now. What happens later?
Happen.
Oh, it still collapses. Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
stop it. It just delays it.
Delays the inevitable.
Which is, in the fiat standard, Seyfedin talks about the transition and talking about the dual currency, which is basically El Salvador money. So going dual, then everyone's choice to move across, and you end up not collapsing the economy because people adopt it out of choice. Whereas if you force it, that's when you're going to see the collapse.
Yeah, you just need to move all your businesses and all the people's personal wealth need to transition over gradually. And obviously the people that do it first are going to benefit because the price will be lower. But yeah, and the thing is, if El Salvador and Turkey do it first, then everyone is going to be rich because no matter when they do it, they're still so early. America and Russia and China right now are so far away, and they're the ones with all the money. So little countries like Turkey and El Salvador, like they can just stack cheap sats right now.
And the thing which we've said before is there's no cheating with Bitcoin either in relation to you know the hash rate. You can't get any more out, can you? Essentially it's going to pump out as it is, and if you've lost your place in the queue, then that is it. You've got to start again from zero.
Interesting. I think if Turkey get this, you've got various South American countries who might be a step closer, and I'm pretty sure you get like African countries as well. So this could be the big moment as well. Second country.
Do you ever think there could be a war between countries to try and take their Bitcoin?
Oh yeah,
of course. Yeah. America will be try everything.
That's what do they do, right? They come and steal the natural resources. So I can definitely see America's last hurrah over the next 10 years at some point, instead of going for the oil.
Correct.
They stole the oil or the gold, didn't they, in World War II?
Well, they stole gold. If you think back to the Iraq War, they stole gold as well.
Yeah, they're always like on the hunt for gold. But really, they went in Iraq for oil. And then we can see over the next 10 years what they're going to go into various countries for. They're going to go in for Bitcoin, aren't they? It's going to be much harder to steal that. That's going to be a lot harder. That's going to be a couple of words, a couple of USB devices.
It's going to like Bukele's going to be like, where is it? I got a prison safe.
And the last word's my dick.
Bring in Nancy Pelosi. Get in the ice cream.
But you kind of think in that kind of eventuality, you are getting to the point like with the Romans, where the Roman soldiers, the US Army, are going to be like, your money's worthless. Why the hell am I going to work for you?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think by that point, it's possibly lost when they want to try and invade people.
Yeah.
Depends how long they wait, I guess.
Yeah.
Never going to make it.
So yeah, exciting, like Turkey. Wait and see what happens. We're hopeful, but obviously I think it is quite a reserved country. But then it is fucked, so they do need to do something.
Yeah. There's big rumors, by the way. Max Kaiser, I missed the link. I couldn't find it again on Twitter, but he actually was talking to a reporter, and he pretty much confirmed that is a South American country being announced in April at the Bitcoin conference. He refused to say who it was because they asked him, what country do you think is next? And he went, well, I can't really answer that because I know. And they went, what? And he went, like he straight away, you could kind of see he should have just said Turkey. He should have just thrown out the wrong answer, but he couldn't throw out the wrong answer.
Maybe, yeah, but he's mad. He's mad. He may just be causing the big whirlwind.
No, I think it's legit because like Max. Otherwise, Max would have just shouted it out. Like, he doesn't give a fuck. But he's actually being. So a lot of people. I looked in the comments. A lot of people think it's Guatemala.
Yeah, it's Middle America, isn't it? It's Central America. It's not South, because if you go south, the obvious contenders are Argentina. Hyperinflation for many years, gone through 3 different currencies in I don't know how many years. You got Venezuela, but they're in communist rule, and they're suffering from hyperinflation, even though they've got rich oil supplies. You've got Brazil, who are fucked as well. And I don't know about the individual countries, but yeah, Middle America is stuffed, especially when we're near El Salvador. There's hope. It would be great though. I just want this next country, because it should be a bit more of a waterfall cascade of countries.
The first follower, right? At the moment, we've got the one person dancing, and they look a bit stupid. Everyone's laughing at them, and at the moment, that's El Salvador. Once you get a first follower, everyone's like, "Oh, there can't be two crazy people." And then when 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's like, "Oh, that's a movement," and we're not on the train.
Was it like when you were into your magical internet money at our company, and it's just you and everyone's just going, Mr. All-In, with his magical internet money, what the fuck's he doing?
Yeah, I pretty much left feeling like that.
Yeah, it wasn't for a while until we followed suit.
Everyone was telling me, when are you going to sell that Bitcoin? Like, it's all going to zero. What are you doing? I'm like, you're not going to make it. See you later. I'm done with you fucking idiots now.
You said that, but then you still kept in touch with us.
I know. Well, eventually you got orange pilled, so I decided to talk to you more regularly.
Yeah, exactly. That is funny though, isn't it? Like, straight away when I remember you told me, it made me stand up and think, I need to look into this kind of thing more. He's just tapped out for life. So yeah, but other people were just like, I don't know, just pessimistic about it and dismissive, and just thought, yeah, whatever, I'll carry on living this pleb world.
Yeah, it's just like people just think it's like winning the lottery. It's like, yeah, but I'm not going to play the lottery just because I know a guy that won. It's he just got lucky. That's what everyone wants to put it down to. And and eventually you just can't be asked explaining it over and over, can you? So
my explanation would be, I've spent hundreds of hours looking at things around Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's my explanation. And plus, you're now 41 podcasts deep with hundreds of hours as well. So take those apples, bitch.
Yeah, it's maybe even thousands then.
Yeah.
Oh, it's easily thousands of hours, yeah. I'm Cathie Wood deep. So I think there's a few stories that pivot from this one. There's a positive one, and
do we want to go positive or negative?
Yeah, there's a positive and a negative. So where do you want to go?
Let's go negative, since we had a big positive.
So this is then the IMF attacking El Salvador for being on a Bitcoin standard. So these are obviously the big bullies that exist in the financial system. These are one of the classic unelected officials that no one votes in, no one votes out. They just exist. They're the international.
And isn't it paid for by America?
I'm sure it's paid by George Soros, freaking BlackRock and Vanguard.
But it's attached to America, so it's not really international.
No. Yeah, it's probably like, the baseball World Series when only American teams participate. But yeah, it's got the word international in the thing. But yeah, and they're just attacking, because obviously they want everyone to be on the US dollar standard, and El Salvador's come off it, and they've gone, fuck the dollar.
They're still on it, aren't they? They're on a part.
Yeah, they're going 50-50, yeah. And but obviously we know the transition, don't we?
We just talked about it.
Like you just said, you don't just switch and then go into a recession and have everyone kicking and screaming. You transition. But obviously, if the next 10 years is successful, which we know it will be, El Salvador will be 100% on a Bitcoin standard.
It just needs more countries. You need a bit more stability on the currency. That's basically what they want. So they want Argentina, Brazil, etc., and then they can move into it when there's a decent proportion of countries.
Yeah. But,
so with this one, it's an international monetary fund. It's based around the dollar. So we've talked about that. So comparisons, I've been reading about this all over Twitter. It's like taxis want to cancel Ubers because they're invading. It's the next evolution. Hotels want to cancel Airbnb because instead of staying in a shitty hotel room, you can stay in someone's pimped out pad. Blockbuster wants to cancel Netflix because you can go on your internet browser instead of going down to a shop and not being able to get a copy of what you want to watch because they don't have them in stock. It's like shopping malls wanting to cancel Amazon. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, the turkeys want to cancel Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Great analogies there. Yeah, you're absolutely spot on. And the thing is, I think they ultimately know that there's nothing that they can do about it. That's the hard part. Yeah, you can say we strongly warn you against it. So what? I've done it. Too late.
Yeah, and I love Bukulele. Like, he did respond to this. I can't find the tweet now, but he just memed. He just memed back. It was just like, nah. Because he's just not buying into it anymore. Because basically this is like, it's really what this reads as. It's like some kind of veiled threat.
Yes.
But you can use Bitcoin. We don't mind you buying some Bitcoin, but you're not allowed to accept it as currency. We don't like that bit. That's the bit they have a problem with. I do not start using it as money, because then people are going to get used to Bitcoin as money. And at the moment, it's still seen as a speculative asset, like a stock. You buy it, it goes up, and you sell it into dollars. Because ultimately, the end game is getting dollars. That's what they want to keep Bitcoin as. But we all know that the end game is not getting more dollars at the end. But when Bitcoin goes up in price, it's the sats will end up being the money we use. And we'll be able to buy like a house with 1,000 sats or something crazy. And that's what they're really scared about. But Bukulele is just like, lol, just bought another 300 Bitcoin. So fuck the IMF.
Because I read something about a loan which El Salvador was looking at from IMF at some point. So it's like 1 billion or something. And I was just like, if they're stalling back on that, surely a load of Bitcoiners can just loan El Salvador 1 billion.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're doing the volcano bond is for $1 billion as well, weirdly. So that they are literally doing that. They're selling $1 billion.
Yeah, I think there's something about the IMF in there, but I don't know how true it was, and I can't think what I saw it on. I sent Bukulele's response to the IMF.
Oh.
So yeah, he did send a meme.
What was it? Oh, yeah, I see you, IMF.
It's even a GIF. He's moved on from just memes.
Oh yeah, it's basically Homer Simpson doing a handstand on the street, walking around on his hands, and Marge just like, "That's lovely, go away." It's like, you're just distracting me. Go away. See you. And right, so we switch to the positive one.
Yeah.
So this is the one where it goes back to America, which is super weird. Like, America is at a country level is super negative, but at a state level, the 50 states are super positive around Bitcoin. At least the ones talking about it. Because this is Arizona.
Is Arizona a Republican state? It does seem to be.
Guarantee it is.
So we've had Texas and Florida, which
I don't even need to Google it to know it's Republican. Like any fucking Democratic state, they're fucking socialist idiots.
Yeah, won't happen.
It's like, I can guarantee Arizona will have a Republican. The governor? They have governors over there, don't they? So yeah, this is a crazy bill in Arizona to make Bitcoin legal tender. So it's exactly what the IMF want to stop El Salvador doing, and Arizona have put it forward to make it legal tender in Arizona, which is insane. This is the classic one where it comes with huge tax implications, because suddenly now, when you can buy and sell Bitcoin, it's just money. It's not a taxable event anymore. So there's no capital gains. It's just, you bought something with Bitcoin, or you can buy a house with Bitcoin. And if you bought Bitcoin, say for 10 grand, and now it's worth 200, and you decide to exchange that Bitcoin for a house, the 190 grand gain isn't a gain anymore. It's just money changing hands. It's a currency. So it has huge implications as to making.
So it brings in the Bitcoiners into state. So it is bringing in more expendable cash into businesses, into Arizona. So it's kind of got that. It's not just the love of Bitcoin, it's also bringing in wealthy individuals in state. But I was thinking about this because I don't really know the law process in the US. Can the central government overrule this?
I don't think so. No, the individual states still have a lot of power.
Yeah.
Because I've never really truly understood this, the power, until we started seeing Florida staying open while every other state was open, and Biden telling them to close and DeSantis just telling them to fuck off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the lockdown stuff and like closing of schools, wearing of masks, I think we saw exactly. You got California, New York obeying completely. Then you got Middle America, Texas, Arizona, Florida, just going, fuck you. We're passing different laws. We're not going to punish anyone for breaking that. No masks, open schools, no lockdown. And and it happened. So obviously this bill here, it hasn't passed. It's just a proposed bill, but it's big. This is kind of crazy that
they've gone through the rigmarole to try and do it.
Yeah, I guarantee this is probably a year's worth of work to get to this point. Like they probably started this time last year.
We're talking about, the viability in the article. It mentions Taproot and Lightning, which we touched upon on various episodes, but it's why it's possible. Because I think, without Taproot and Lightning, the whole El Salvador situation wouldn't be possible. She wouldn't have the fast payments on the different layer through Lightning, and then it's verification transactions, so faster verification of transactions via Taproot. Without those two, just you'll probably be able to give a better opinion, Mr. Ord, but I just don't see how it's a viable currency without all that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, especially Lightning. I'm not totally sure about Taproot. I'm pretty sure we could have done it about Taproot, but Lightning is essential to make it as a payment. It has to be. You had to have Lightning.
It does. I suppose it doesn't really matter because you've got that layer of Lightning, and Taproot sits down here on the verification transaction, so it's not actually that important. It's just added assurance.
Yeah, the two together just makes Lightning more solid, so it all helps. But because before, we talked about this. I remember being in Bitcoin like 2015, 2016, and this type of stuff was rumored. And we always got hit with, but Bitcoin cost between $5 and $10 a transaction.
We still get hit with that.
Yeah.
But at least back then there was no answer. We didn't have an answer. Our answer literally was.
What year was Lightning?
Bloody hell, like 2018, I think.
It was announced, obviously.
Yeah, it was always in the works. So back in the day, Lightning was. It was a meme, right? It was literally a meme. Like the shitcoiners used to laugh at us for it because it was always 6 months away, and it ended up taking about 2 years worth of 6 months to actually launch. And then even when it launched, it wasn't quite right. It had lots of bugs, didn't really work. Channels weren't too reliable. But
you
now we're
a developer that gives you a confirmed time frame anyway.
Yeah,
you've got time frames. And then you've also got beta versions, the initial versions are always buggy. Yeah. They always have to be fixed.
Yeah. So we're 4 years into Lightning now. So now it's rock solid and it's super reliable. So it's all nice and Bitcoin has, and the Bitcoin's transactions are super, like the fees now are super low anyway. I've done loads of fees this week and they're like, I was paying on average about 50p a transaction to send. So that's pretty low compared to Bitcoin. I checked the Ethereum fees. They're about £20 per fee. If you want to send a shitcoin, it's about £50 per fee when I checked the other day. So Bitcoin is a fraction of those. But if you want to do Lightning transactions, I've always said they're virtually free and instant.
Because I sold my Ethereum, before it ballooned, because I just had no faith in it. I bought it back in 2018 or 17, and I sold it, and the fee was astronomical. I was like, "A Coinbase scamming me?" was my initial thought, and I thought, "This is just the fee." So I sold it, converted to Bitcoin just before Ethereum boomed, unfortunately.
Was that on Pro?
That was just on
standard.
I think it's on standard, if I remember correctly. So it was a while ago. It's just when I think it's when the whole thing about the stolen coins and then them changing the code behind to put the coins back with the proper person came about. I just went, this has no use. So I sold it, and this was before NFTs. Yeah. But for anyone listening, download Blue Wallet, try it with one of your mates. It's just extremely easy. We've all had a play with it on one of the previous pods. Yeah. We even got Miss No Show. I got Miss No Show to do it while we're drinking a beer.
Nice.
That's the one. All right, so next story, I think we've covered. Are we into Facebook? Well, Facebook. Shitcoin Corners is there as well.
Well, I think Facebook is a Shitcoin Corner one as well.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? It falls under it. So,
do you want to just finishing off the Bitcoin stuff, then we can go into a load of shitcoin bollocks.
Yeah.
Some memes. So the last serious probably story we've got is what happened today, actually. So it's Saylor's event, Bitcoin for Corporations.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's at the top. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's literally just happened. I don't know. I've somehow missed this. And then it all just started kicking off today. And I jumped into the keynote. It had Saylor and Jack Dorsey on for an hour. Great little chat. And they were just talking about why should companies have Bitcoin on the balance sheet and how did they do it? Why did they do it? It was a great chat. Nothing really new for us guys. You know, we've all heard it before, right? We've literally, the first 20 minutes of this podcast was saying why you should put Bitcoin on the balance sheet for companies. But again, it's obviously this is directed at corporations. The call that I was on had like 5,000 people watching. So who knows how many of it is just random Bitcoiners like me. But it's very focused at businesses. He did it last year. He's doing it again.
Yeah, he did.
And so weirdly, the last year, we didn't really see that much growth in companies taking up Bitcoin. But who knows? If he keeps going, it's going to be one of those like slow orange pills, isn't it? That if you just keep hammering it home, I think each time he does one of these events, like the collateral that comes of this one, is so good. You know, I shared one of them on LinkedIn. And that's just what we need. It's like, it's great that Saylor's doing this type of stuff because it's just educating business people to go, look, putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet, it's not simple. Like taking custody of your Bitcoin isn't simple, but it's not impossible. It's just follow these steps and you get there. And then the rewards are fucking astronomical. So just do the work.
Yeah. I do actually remember, last year, I think it was around about the same time, I'm just going to take a look, that Saylor did this event, and then there was a spike in the price afterwards as well. And I remember I tried to get in before this event because I felt like it was one of those things where...
I remember the conversation, actually. I think it was you and Miss No Show were talking about it.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, shitty no coiners.
Yeah. I remember I did a buy and looking on my sheet, it was the 2nd of February and Bitcoin at that time was 24k a coin.
Pretty much back to the same price now.
So we're nearly at the same, aren't we?
Because I must admit, I didn't think the price would pump after the event because it's companies, right? So companies take 6 to 12 months to do anything. But what I think may have happened is a lot of company people did sign in and did get educated on Bitcoin. And what they ended up doing is buying personally first. So a load of CEOs and CFOs that were obviously wealthy got told about why you should invest Bitcoin for your company. And they went, well, fuck the company. I just need to buy some for myself. why am I sat here with 10 million quid in the bank? I need to get a couple of million of that into Bitcoin. Fuck. Yeah. And so I think that's where the initial pump came from. So maybe we get another one. That'd be nice.
I'm going over to the chart and I'm going to have a quick look at the date of this time last year. So yeah, bear with me and I can...
Yeah, I do think you're right. I think we did have a pump.
Yeah.
I do remember that. Yeah, and weirdly, I think it was this event, I think, that really helped in orange pilling you guys. Because
it really was.
It just kind of like brought Bitcoin into the corporate world, didn't it? You're like, oh, they're here. Like, what are they doing in the business world? What the fuck? Like, what Bitcoin's meant to be this fringe thing for the crazies.
Yeah. I was going to say, not me. I think it was Sir Neverlook and Sir Miss No Show who were more on this event. I think I didn't really pay much attention to it.
The beginning of the month, it was around about 32. And then the highest was 58.
Is that in pounds?
$58,000.
Dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice little pump from the event. Yeah, if we get that again, that'd be nice.
So yeah, it went from 32 to 58, difference 26K.
Nice.
Yeah.
Average for that month was $46,000.
Yeah, well, this time we're at 38 when we started it, so do the same.
Mm.
Maybe we'll get back to all-time high in a month or something. That'd be nice.
Get Turkey on board.
Get Guatemala on board.
There you go. Well, if you think
ignore the
now,
IMF.
more money as well in Bitcoin, so yeah, could certainly happen.
Right, so is it time for shitcoin?
Yeah, come on, let's do a few shitcoins.
Double dose. So, So this one, let's start off with Elon. How did this even start? Was it just a random thought by Elon, and he emailed McDonald's saying, "I will eat a Happy Meal if McDonald's accepts Dodge," or was there a precursor to that?
Well, I think because El Salvador already McDonald's in El Salvador accepts Bitcoin, and then maybe trying to push Doge as well.
Yeah, well, McDonald's is a massive meme at the moment because the price is down. Everyone's joking that we're all going to get jobs at McDonald's. Literally, the front cover of our last podcast was everyone working in McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
So I think Elon just had McDonald's and crypto on the brain and just like lent into the meme and went, "Go on, McDonald's, like we're all going to work there. So all the Dogecoin people are going to be working at McDonald's. Why don't you accept it?" I mean, that's the angle he's coming from, and their reply was great. It was just only if Tesla accept Grimace coin. Here, I think Grimace is like some McDonald's character, where they're just basically going, "Look, Doge is just shitcoin, so you accept our shitcoin, and we'll call it quits." And it's just hilarious because it's like McDonald's are just going, "Fuck off, Elon. No, we're not accepting Doge. Like, no."
It's like you see the memes with someone at a restaurant and they say, "Oh, it's X amount." We go, "I think we should cover it as a drawing."
Yeah.
Just like, NFT world.
Yeah, what's this? It's not a picture, it's an NFT. Oh, yeah. It's got to cover the bill then if it's an NFT.
Yeah, I've just sent into the chat. Yeah, Grimace is, for those not in the know, a McDonald's toy.
And weirdly, you know, the crazy thing was, right? I was checking the chat and all this on Twitter. Someone created a Grimace coin, and it started pumping like crazy.
Oh, gosh, of course it did.
Because McDonald's have not created a Grimace coin, but because they mentioned it, everyone thought, "Oh shit, Grimace coin." So some random guy created Grimace coin. Everyone started buying it, and then just dumped it on them. Like morons and their money easily separated.
Yeah, have fun staying poor.
Not gonna make it.
Right, do we want to move on to the second shitcoin?
Yeah.
Yep.
So this is one which came about, was it? This would have been 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago when we had Libra through Facebook, which was meant to be a cryptocurrency where you could buy various goods or services via Facebook. So they kind of got their own universe. And there's a lot of issues at the time because I think the US government got its back up thinking that Facebook could topple the US dollar using Libra because of its user base. And so it kind of went away and it got reformed as something called the DM project. I don't know what the actual coin was called, or was it DM again?
Yeah, it is DM, yeah.
And it seems to have died again. So I'm kind of like, Mark Zuckerberg decided to pull it. I mean, there must be something else behind that one. What on earth's going on?
Yeah, it's the US government, isn't it? Like we always said, like you can't threaten the US dollar with a CEO. So within months of them creating Libra, Mark Zuckerberg and his top guys were dragged in front of Congress and destroyed for threatening the dollar. And then very quickly they skirted around the fact that let's not make this all about attacking the dollar, because that suggests the dollar was weak, and just went after them for privacy, for spreading fake news. They went after them for everything and went, you know what? We really need to break you apart, regulate you, make you a government organization. They just threatened them. We're basically just destroying their business.
Well, they have got them in their pockets now, as we've seen over the last couple of years.
Oh yeah, they literally they're like the FBI and the CIA and various government officials have, like, it's virtually like confirmed that they have direct access to the Facebook platform and can censor people from their end now. They don't need to send in documents. They can just press buttons and just cancel people themselves, because it's a matter of national security. And so of course they've tried to repackage Libra as DM. I never really got the difference. I didn't really care enough to look into it, but they've now just given up completely, and they're selling off the assets and just going, look, does anyone else want this bag of shit? And
why didn't they just create gift vouchers? Why did they need to create a cryptocurrency? Couldn't they just have a redemption code to top up your balance? It just seemed like a lot of work for the same outcome.
Oh man, if they would got this off the ground, it would have made them billions, if not trillions. Because they are the biggest country in the world, Facebook. They have billions of people inside their platform. If they could have got their own shitcoin used, imagine how the price would have gone fucking insane. And they have complete control. Like they are literally, they become the most powerful organization on the planet by a lot, like way more powerful than the US dollar. It's like the US dollar, there's only 340 million people in America. Only a billion people in Russia, a billion people in China. There's something like 3 or 4 billion people have Facebook. So
active users.
They become insanely powerful by running a currency. And if you let that run, suddenly now Facebook start calling up the US government going, we're going to ban Libra in your country unless you do this. And your entire fucking nation uses Libra every day. And they didn't want that happening. So this is why they're scared of Bitcoin. But obviously Bitcoin needs to get to 4 billion users. Facebook was already at it. So it was a much more immediate threat.
So we don't know how DM died.
I think they just tried to repackage it, and they've just gone, you know what? No one got sold on the lie that DM isn't Libra, because it clearly was. So they just went, fuck it, sell it off.
Was well, also don't forget that they are looking to be in the metaverse, hence the name change as well. And in games, in-game currency is also a huge market as well. So using their DM currency, they could have drove the price of that ridiculously and obviously got lots more money from that. So I feel like they do want to have some form of currency where that direct money that's spent in the metaverse somehow goes to them, and they just haven't figured it out. Naturally, the best way would be is to actually, I believe, kind of call a truce with the Gemini twins and use the exchange of Gemini within the metaverse, and then they all get rich that way. It'll never happen, but that's a way which they could actually do it legitimately.
There's more chance than Nancy Pelosi sucking me off than that happening.
Correct.
I've noticed actually in that article, David Marcus, he's resigned. He was the guy that came in purposefully. He was the ex PayPal guy. I think he was one of the early founders, and they brought him in to go manage Libra. And then in November last year, he quit and left.
Mm-hmm. Do you reckon they'll buy a cryptocurrency in order to use?
I think they will stay well away from all this now. And I think that, like you said, they're in the pockets of the US government. They just need to go, look, we're just going to do social media and just send a load of bullshit to our users and just monetize them with ads. They know there's shit tons of money in creating a currency, but they just can't do it. Like the US government have too many guns and too much power. So they're just going to have to go.
Do you reckon But they're going to bring in some like NFTs, aren't they, with the metaverse?
Yeah, and the government don't give a fuck about that. So yeah, just go and scam your users. Just weirdly, I just clicked on that David Marcus, and he's got an NFT profile picture of his own fucking face. I've just realized actually on Twitter now, you have a round picture if it's a normal profile picture. You have a hexagon if it's an NFT.
Wow.
Now, because I wondered why his picture was was a hexagon. I clicked on it, and it says this is an NFT. It got brought at this date and all that kind of bollocks. I'm like, oh my god.
Again, reconfirming the digital flex. It's not a flex because it's just a JPEG.
Yeah, and it's a picture of your own face. Like what?
Yeah.
It's the same profile picture you had before, but now like he paid for that one or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So if you've got a blue tick and a hexagon, that's the new digital flex, as opposed to a circle.
Yeah. Oh god.
Here we go.
He's got .eth in his name as well. Like David Marcus. Just go for a fucking lie down, mate.
.eth, of course. Demarcus.eth.
So .method. Yeah, but talking about celebrities, we've got Dave Portnoy in here actually. And Dave Portnoy, he got memed to hell. He bought a load of Bitcoin at $11,000. And then I think we went down to 8, and he sold it all, lost a load of money. And then when I think we went from 8 to 69, and he got called Paper Hand Portnoy all the way up. Like I've trolled him a lot, like a load of Bitcoiners did. But fair play, Dave. He has come out and gone, I know I'm a dick. I didn't understand Bitcoin. I'll try and get it. So he did buy some Bitcoin a couple of months ago, but now he's just bought 29 Bitcoin. Well, actually, when did he buy it? It's a couple of days ago.
Yeah, he bought it $1 million, didn't he?
Yeah, he bought $1 million worth of Bitcoin, basically. 29 Bitcoin about 3 days ago. And this time he's been like memeing, going, I'm diamond hands now. I get it. Don't worry. Price goes down. I ain't fucking selling. It's like, well done, Dave. Like you've taken the L. Like you could have had so much more Bitcoin at 11K, but you're buying in now at 38K, and you're really happy. So because it went to 69, didn't it, dickhead? Like
yeah, you could have had 87 instead of 29.
Yeah, but I think it's like the gauntlet of fire we all have to run, isn't it? Like you kind of come in for the gains, and you realize it's not about the gains, it's about stacking sats and just waiting and lowering your time preference to be much further out. And just because it dips 20-30% the first month you buy it, it doesn't mean anything. Just freaking hodl and you're going to be fine. And he's back. Fair play to him. I think it's always good. Like when someone gets publicly shamed as badly as Dave did, sometimes you can almost build up a resentment for Bitcoin and go, fuck that. I ain't buying in ever again. Unless it's below 11K at least, because that's when, in his head, that'll be the price of Bitcoin. Like always is, isn't it? Whatever price you first decide to press buy, in your head, that's the price. So in his head, the price is 11K. So to press a buy on $1 million at 38K must have been hard. But
he must have read the Bitcoin Standard or something. Must have done his research this time.
I have to go back, but it's interesting. I was just quickly looking at that David Marcus, even though he's got ETH in his name, and just 4 hours ago, he also just said, it's become clear to me that Bitcoin will be the number one asset, and L1 still around in 20 years with increased compounding relevance over time. The number 2 slot for a different use case is still to be decided. So these guys are actually showing intellectual humility publicly and kind of doing a full 180. And it's not a lot of people that will do this, but it's happening.
Yeah. Funny enough about this, I don't know if you remember, I told you about one of your other dads at my daughter's school who was Bitcoiner, but also had Ethereum because he thought there were things which he could do with it, like smart contracts or some shit like that. And I saw him at the weekend, so I was like, still got your Bitcoin? He's like, yeah. This dip, I wasn't that bothered as I was the first time. The first time I was sweating a bit, whereas this time I just rode it. Doesn't bother me. don't even think about it. I said, well, have you still got your shit coins? And he's like, I still got my Ethereum. So I'm like, you still got your digital Flickr then? And he just laughed, so he knows what it's about. So it seems like he's gone onto Twitter. He started following various people who I follow, and I think he's starting to get it. And he's just like, I see some short-term games off Ethereum. So it's no longer I see the value in it. It's I'm seeing some gains off this, and I'm going to sell it for Bitcoin. Is pretty much what I got from him. So it's a funny evolution.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, because that's the thing. I have no problem with people doing that, provided your end game is Sats. Play whatever game you think. Like play a property game, play the shitcoin game. Don't care. Like if you think you're good at it, you think you can get more Sats at the end. Roll the dice. Good luck. Just know that you need to end up in Sats at the end. That's the end goal.
Yes. Yeah. All roads lead back to Bitcoin.
But, actually, yeah, that's the last one, isn't it? So, yeah, we've just got the and finally one.
Okay, this is an interesting one.
You could have gone with a couple this week because there's been some funny stories of the NHS backing down. I'm pretty sure there's been some other stuff going on, but this one is pretty funny as well.
Yeah.
Go for it. And finally,
Spotify takes down Neil Young's music after his Joe Rogan ultimatum. So, whoever Neil Young is, I think he was relevant about 30 years ago.
Well, he was an anti-establishment hippie in the 60s or 70s, wasn't he?
I know.
So what's happened between then and now? Is it the fact that he never was anti-establishment and just wanted profit? Or is it the fact that he's got so rich that he doesn't care and he doesn't want to break the norm?
Or did he get infected with wokeness and he's had 3 vaccinations and now Rogan's going public going, we don't think the virus was that bad and the vaccinations don't even work. He's got massively triggered, just like all the woke people are, and going, cancel him. I don't want to hear this. It's like, you're not even listening to it anyway, mate. I can guarantee none of you have listened to the Joe Rogan podcast. And you're just hearing articles re-spouted on CNN. But yeah, it's been great because he went to Spotify. If you don't take down Joe Rogan's podcast, you got to take my stuff down. The Spotify went, we're taking your stuff down. He went, what? It's like, we're taking it down.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan's their most popular thing, which they got on their platform.
They spent 300 million on it.
Yeah, so they're not going to take him down. And then one of his little buddies from the 60s or 70s, Joni Mitchell, who's another crusty old singer, said, you got to take down my stuff. He said, okay.
Gone.
Funny enough.
Basically, you're saying, I want to go. I want to leave.
All this made me create a Spotify account. I created a Spotify account. And I've listened to a couple of podcasts. I listened to Malone one and another one, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. And that was purely because of all this going on. And it was interesting, but I would say that Joe Rogan isn't questioning that as much. He's questioning experts who are giving their opinions, and he's leaving down to the why, what, where, whatever else the questions are. So he's an interviewer.
Exactly. Like once I bet you were waiting for some really like meaty, tasty stuff, and you watched it and went, what? And exactly that, like all the controversy. I watch these things all the time. I'm like, why are people getting so triggered? And it's just because he does just veer from the virus is going to kill everyone and you have to get vaccinated. If you veer from that narrative, even slightly, everyone gets triggered and you got to go shut that person up, cancel them. And Joe just refuses. He's like, but no, this guy doesn't think we should have mandated vaccines.
And he's also someone with very, very big qualifications in the field.
Yeah, like
for
various of mRNA.
Yeah, for various doctors to question him is outrageous.
And one of my favorite little memes that spawned off this one though was James Blunt, and he's a legend. He went, I'm going to create another album and put it on Spotify unless Joe Rogan gets cancelled. And everyone was just like, cancel Joe, James, don't do another album, please. I love that James Blunt just knows he's like really hated, like just but almost like meme hated. So he just leans into it and goes, "I'm gonna create more music unless you do something this." This became like it's like a massive meme. Like it was all over the place. Like Neil Young has just been destroyed at the end of this.
It's just what I think the fundamental thing which I really disagree with is he's trying to cancel free speech. And it's one of the things which they stood for within the 60s and 70s, as well as the anti-establishment. He's completely going against it. You know, but we've seen pretty much the same in not so much free speech, but free choice with the NHS this week, which would have been a good story to touch upon if we didn't have the Joe Rogan one. But Joe Rogan, great. And he even came out with a video. And on LinkedIn, I saw a LinkedIn news article which says Joe Rogan apologizes. And I just went, he didn't apologize. He explained what he did.
Yeah, he just chatted to some people and then went on with his day.
No, he had this little clip which he put on Twitter, social media, just said, the format of what his show is.
Yeah.
To explain to people. And it's just like, he didn't apologize. He just said what he does.
So apologising for what he does on a regular basis, and he's been doing for the last 5 years or so. Just having a conversation.
It's going to be longer than that, surely.
Oh yeah, he's been going for at least 10, 15, yeah.
Yeah.
He's on like 2,500 episodes, and admittedly he does like 3 a week or something. He's hardcore into the podcasting, Joe.
Has he done one with Safety?
No. That's the thing. The Bitcoin is he's done 2 or 3 with Andreas Antonopoulos, and then but that's the only Bitcoiner he's really done. And then he's done, like, he recently did one with Jordan Peterson, and obviously he's been orange pilled, and Jordan didn't even mention Bitcoin, really annoyingly. So we've been trying it. Like, there's loads of people tagging Joe with Sailor, Saifedean, just trying to get one of our like OGs in there to talk to Joe.
I think I'd want Saifedean.
Yeah, he'd be great.
What I love about
orange pilling Joe would be massive, like, because he knows it's all bullshit, but he hasn't figured out the money yet. So once he understands the money, like, that's going to be so big for the world when Joe gets orange pilled.
The way that he asks questions is essentially, like, comes to the interview with a complete blank slate, no preconceptions on all topics, not just what maybe Bitcoin, because recently, I think I said in the last podcast where I rewatched him interviewing Elon Musk, and essentially he was asking him, like an excited school kid, how do you do all of this? Just starting away, just simple questions. How? Why? And he'll ask all the same questions, which each one of us have all asked about, okay, why do I need to invest into Bitcoin? And he will get orange pilled by the man himself, Saifedean, from the very beginning. Yeah.
And the thing is, what's great about Joe as well is he talks to experts, like literally the brightest minds in various fields. And as they're talking, like, when he doesn't understand, or even if he thinks they're slightly bullshitting, he calls them on it.
Yeah.
He goes, that sounds wrong. Like, you said something different before. Now you're saying this. Which one's right? And he holds people to account. And he's more than happy to argue with his guest, especially when he's getting a bit high on his whiskey or he's smoking some weed. And
or unless it's Mike Tyson.
Yeah, he does. Oh yeah, he did not question Mike Tyson. He gave him a very easy way. He's fucking terrified of Mike, wasn't he? But he disagreed with him once, I think. And Mike was like, I punched some guy's head off once. And he's like, oh fuck. He thought Mike was going to come across the table. He's like, I'm not starting anything.
He knows his audience and his guests. Yeah.
But yeah, he just holds people to account. And that's the thing. Like, that's why we like Joe, because he isn't like super political either side and biased. He isn't super like one thing or the other. He just gets people in that are experts, listens to it, finds it interesting. If he thinks they're bullshitting, he calls them on it. And then they just have a good chat. But you won't like any gotchas or like the kind of like gotcha media that they do, where they try and lead you down a dead end and then go, you look stupid now. He just has a chat, and it's just honest chats. And quite often his questions are what you're thinking. Like the last question that was answered, it'll either won't be clear or sound a little bullshitty, And Joe will just be like, don't like that last answer. Can we go back? Because and you're like, oh my God, well done, Joe. Like, no one does this.
But he's now probably being labelled as a right-wing racist.
Oh, he is. He is. Like, you go on Twitter now, like the COVID cow on Twitter just think Joe is a racist, anti-vaxxer, flat earther. But that's just how they just pigeonhole everyone that they don't agree with. It's just, and the thing is, like, what they don't realize as well, like, he's never had Donald Trump on, or I don't think any Republican, but he's had Bernie Sanders on.
Yeah.
And he's a fucking socialist. And at the end of that podcast, actually, Joe went, when he was running for president, when Trump won, Joe actually said, I'm voting for Bernie Sanders. So make that of what you will. Like, that totally goes against all this like media narrative of him being some Trumpian, like, right-wing racist. It's like, he voted for fucking Bernie Sanders, which I categorically hate Bernie Sanders and think he would decimate America. But I think I'm still okay with Joe for thinking that, because I still like listening to his conversations. I don't agree with his politics, but whatever. Like, we don't agree on everything, but he's a good guy. Like, I like listening to his conversations. So, but yeah. But I must admit, I say fair play to Spotify, because I think they're a Norwegian company, and they have censored a little bit of Joe's podcast. There's a couple of people that have been censored. So Alex Jones, and I think there's a few others. I can't remember who it was, but there's been a few podcasts that were a bit out there, and they've removed them from Spotify. But by and large, the majority, I think there's about 20 or 30 of Joe's episodes have been removed out of the 2,500. And then they're mainly Alex Jones's ones, because he's the guy that really goes in. He goes in about 9/11, freaking the Holocaust, like the whole lot. He goes in about all of it. It's all a scam. I've got proof. And so yeah, they didn't want any of that stuff on there, which whatever. But I say fair play to them, because they've been under a lot of pressure to cancel Joe, and they've just gone, nah.
He brings in too much. We pay him too much.
Yeah, and weirdly, I think this whole controversy is just getting them more sign-ups and more premium members, because everyone just wants to go, this Joe Rogan podcast must be amazing. There's so much controversy. Let's have a listen to this thing before it gets cancelled.
So you mean scarcity, just like Bitcoin?
Exactly, yeah.
It's human nature, isn't it? Well, there we have it. That was Pod 41, brought to you by Dr. Evil 10%, Mr. All In, Sir Never Look, and she was here, but she was never here, Mrs. No Show. Peace out.